All right.
All right. Anyway, yeah, Driders, episode 5. So let's get into the basics.
Alrighty.
Why don't you go ahead?
Alrighty. So Driders, people are like, "What is a Drider?" It's very simple. So imagine a centaur. Plop the bottom half with a giant freaking spider. All right.
Very big.
Very big spider. This spider's huge. All right. Any people out there with arachnophobia? Whew. All right.
Yeah.
It's not as bad if you have it because normally on the top where the person would be for a centaur, there would be a drow. A drow upper body. Could be a man or a woman. Normally a woman. If you don't know what a drow is, they're dark elves. So they have white hair and purple to grayish skin. They can have red eyes or normal eyes. But for their spider body, they're not like tarantulas. It's mostly kind of like armored. Like they have a carapace, I guess. But yeah, they're very big. Probably bigger than like a bear. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're very big. Like griffin size, so.
Yeah, very tall. Because they got these long legs that come down and like lift their body way up.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, so they're 8-legged. Just to emphasize what a drow is. Picture an elf. Everyone knows what an elf is, like Lord of the Rings. And just make them like darker. Make them the edgy version.
Edgy elves.
We're not going to talk a bunch about drow because today's not about drow. It's about specifically Driders. But we will say anything that is absolutely necessary to know.
Yes.
And then we'll get into the drow specifics in another episode. But to finish off basics, so that's what they look like. In general of how they act. So they themselves have the mind of a drow. So in general, they are compassionless. They don't have compassion. They're sadistic. And that's just them in general. But then take that person and slap on a traumatic incident and the shame of being shunned. And now you have this creature that is not already naturally bad, but now they have these traumatic incidents to just push them over the edge.
Yeah, so basically, you kind of have like a serial killer, general normal one, and then literally Satan comes, messes with the serial killer, and now it's scary. This guy or this girl is gonna be, not natural, not a normal person. So they're very strange, I guess,
strange.
Put into perspective. Yes. So do not, they will not act as like a normal person. They're not really people. You wouldn't really classify them as a human.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, but
we'll get into that. Okay. But so that's the basics of what a Drider is.
Yep.
So for your information, let's talk about what they can do.
So their stats
statistically.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's the right. Yeah. So you want to start with that?
Yeah, I could start with that. So for stat wise, they're pretty chunky.
Yeah, they're tough.
They're tough.
They're thin, but they're tough.
They're pretty strong. So their AC or their armor class is 19, which is one above plate armor.
And it's natural armor.
And it's their natural armor.
So if you want to give them armor,
that would be scary. So if you give them armor, I would give them like a 22 or even like a 21 AC.
It gets complicated.
It gets complicated, but
they can't put armor on their like spider parts, so they can put it on their like
human part
or their drow parts.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. Typically, you're not going to find. Typically, putting armor on a drow might not really affect the AC. But
yeah, I mean, on like a Drider. Just saying, we're gonna get drow and Drider mixed up, so we're just gonna apologize for that. I mean, I will.
Oh, you're gonna say drow and Drider? Well, just don't.
I'm gonna try
say Drider.
But so their AC,
19 armor class.
19 natural armor class, which
very
is
hard to
really
hit.
high. Their hit points on average, it's 123 health, which is that's really.
They're also beefy.
They're very beefy, yeah, tough and beefy. For their speed, they move about 30 feet, so that's normal humanoid speed. Normal human, like human to elf. And they can climb, and their climbing speed is 30 feet.
Yeah.
Basically
being on the wall and sometimes ceiling doesn't affect their speed
so
whatsoever.
Literally, like, any terrain they're fine with, except for water, I guess. But,
right.
Yeah, but, so basically, they're actually really strong. Their strength is a 16, which is a +3. Their dexterity is also a +3. So they're very dexterous. Their constitution is even higher with a +4.
So if we stop there, their stats in terms of combat, which is really the strength, dex, constitution, are good. Are solid.
Yeah, very solid. They're not like juggernauts, but they're a brawler class. Like they can fight melee. So
Totally.
that gives them that good stuff. Their intelligence is above average with a +1. Their wisdom is a +2. And lastly, their charisma is a +1.
Yeah.
So nothing bad about them, really. They're
Nothing
really
bad.
good with anything, you know.
At least at their base stats.
Yeah.
We'll get into their specifics
just
and ways that they could be taken advantage of, stuff like that.
Right, yeah. So, like, just a general Drider, pretty good. Unless it would be scary if you found one lifting, going to the gym. That would be scary. For their skills, they have a +5 to perception. So rogues, they're not the most perspective, but like
The most what? Perceptive.
Perceptive. Sorry.
Yeah, perceptive.
Yeah. So they'll see you. For their stealth, they get a +9,
Yeah, they're just spiders.
which is
They're giant spiders. I mean, yeah.
which is scary, very scary. I mean, they also have 120 feet of dark vision, so they can see in the dark. They do have they have spider climb, so as earlier, they can climb any surface. It does not matter. Ceiling, walls, webbed walls, literally anything they can climb on. So
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into those feats, let's just finish out their just stats here. So yeah, the perception +5, stealth +9. The perception stuff's interesting because they don't have extra eyes. Spiders have a lot of eyes, but they just have 2. From what I know, they don't have extra spider eyes.
Actually, we might get into this later, but some of them might have eyes like below their torso, which is kind of interesting.
Okay,
but
cool.
Also, the
but
website.
they have the dark vision of 120 feet because drow, their race, are under dark.
Yeah,
dwellers.
Underdark. Yeah.
So they're constantly in the dark. It's actually the night. They're nocturnal essentially. So
yes.
It's good to go there. Languages, they speak Elven as they would because that's their heritage, and then they also speak Undercommon because that's where their society lies.
Kind of cool.
So that's what they can speak. All right, so you mentioned spider climb. So as a spider, as the bottom half of the spider, they can walk on walls.
They're spiders.
And they have web walker, which means they can maneuver through webs without getting impeded.
Right.
Which will play into how they fight in their layers and stuff like that. They also have Fey ancestry, just from being a type of elf, which just affects how they're charmed, and so they have resistance to it. They have advantage on charisma saves.
Yeah, so,
you could say. And
so
magic cannot put them to sleep.
Yeah, so don't try to seduce them, all right? Not going to work.
Right. I don't know if that warrants a save, but
It does.
I don't think it does.
To the bear, it does, Jake.
Okay.
All right. I've tried it. It didn't work, guys. Just don't do it.
Seduction?
I tried to. Yeah, I got sad, and it stabbed me, and I was sad.
Oh.
Just don't try it, guys.
Got rejected by a Drider.
Literally, they're so rejectful, all right? Like, I just want to be nice, but no, just rejection, just they're kind of buttholes, but...
Right.
Yeah, so don't try to do anything charismatic with them, all right? Just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Not only are they an elf, but they're also just not open for relationships at the moment. Anyway, moving on. They also have sunlight sensitivity, which is, again, linked to their nocturnalness. They live in the dark, so when they go in the sun, they're like partially vampires in that way.
I mean, they just don't like it.
They don't like it. But the drow society in general has all these... Sunlight is not good for them on a number of levels, which we will not get into.
I mean, they're like never in the sunlight, but
Yeah. They don't like light, and they're sensitive to it.
Yeah,
period.
Period.
Okay. So let's get in. I'll get into their attacks here.
Yes.
So firstly, they can multi-attack, which is always an awesome ability for a monster to have.
Yep.
Just because action economy can make a monster not cool at all if they're facing like 4 people. So they have multi-attack, which is cool. They can attack with a long sword or bow. And those are the 2 attacks they have, I believe, that they can do in one turn. And then they can at any time switch out one of those with a bite. So let's get into what each one does. The bite is 1d4 piercing plus 2d8 poison. So it's mostly poison damage, but the minor pincers get in there and get a little piercing.
Where are do they bite you?
Spiders have pretty...
Why not, but with like their elf head?
That's a good question.
Like, do they just bite you, or do they have like little baby pinchers? Like where like some of their...
If you look at the art of a Drider, I have seen versions where it's the drow that has the messed up mouth. And in that case, if you want to play them accurately, you would want to bite in... Like, you wouldn't want to bite all the time because it doesn't really make sense. You'd maybe bite like a restrained opponent. But if they have a mouth on the spider body, which I have seen, so they basically have 2 mouths, then they can bite like all the time. But anyway, we'll get into that. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. I guess I am getting ahead of myself. So they do 1d4 on the bite, and that's plus 1d8 poison. And that's kind of how spiders work. Like, if you get a bite, it's on your body. It's probably not a spider because spiders have weak bites. Like
they do.
Some spiders have the toxins to kill you, but they just literally can't bite through your skin.
The daddy long legs, prime example of that.
Yeah. So these spiders can get through your skin, and they can also poison you. So anyway.
Yes.
And then in general, it's a long sword attack, so they can do 1d8 or do 1d10 depending on if they're holding it with 1 or 2 hands. No reason to hold it with 1 hand because they're not holding a shield or anything.
They can though. You can have like for every monster, you can have any like. So this Drider could be coming up with a battle axe.
Yeah, you can.
Well, like, you can, but normally
this is the base.
Normal stats.
The base stats.
Just have it holding 2 hands.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
But and then they have longbow, which is 1d8 plus 3, and this is a little extra tidbit to their longbow. They typically cover their arrows in their own poison.
Smart.
So if you get hit with an arrow, you get 1d8 poison. Not as much as them biting you and pumping the poison into you, but there is poison on the arrow. So if you get hit, add a 1d8 poison to it. Okay, and then so that's their attacks in general. They do also have a couple spells that as Driders they acquire.
Rare ones do.
No. The base stat block has 3 spells. There's variants, and there's also other reasons that we'll get into, where Driders can have more spells. But the 3 spells that they have at base level are Dancing Lights. So they can make like the orbs of light run around and become even like, they can look like a little half person sometimes, depending on how you play them. So that's Dancing Lights, which is a weird one because they don't like light, but we'll get into it. Darkness, which makes sense. Right, so they can cast darkness, and that helps them in a million different ways. And then Fairy Fire, which will just make them more OP during fighting. It gives people advantage on all their attacks after casting it. So
yeah,
that's a good one.
Kind of scary. Do not underestimate them. They will make you their slave.
Right.
Or just outright kill you.
No, yeah. Once we get to combat, it'll be exciting.
And they'll hurt your feelings.